Hi, I'm Guy Lawrence, and you are listening to the Guy Lawrence podcast. If you're enjoying this content and you want to find out more and join me and come further down the rabbit hole, make sure you head back to guylawrence.com.au. Awesome, guys. Enjoy the show. Dave, welcome to the podcast.
Guy, how are you, mate?
I am fantastic. I'm still high off our 3-day retreat that I just did.
Yes, you look a little bit. I'm looking at you now. You look a little bit stoned.
Thank you. Is my skin complexion looking clearer?
You definitely. You look light, mate. You look light.
I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. Like I said to somebody yesterday, I'm still walking around in a love bubble from the energy created on the weekend. But I'm sure.
Well, obviously, some people that I knew were at the retreat, and the feedback that I got from them was unbelievable. And they've come back, and they're definitely different people. So, in a good way. So
yeah. No, I think we all were. I think we all came back slightly different than when we walked in, which was our intention, and it was beautiful. So yeah, I'm very happy. Now,
amazing.
Anyway, enough about me for a moment. The spotlight's back on you, and I think you do realize that you're the first person on the Guy Lawrence podcast to come back for a second time.
Oh, amazing, mate! I feel I always feel honoured. I think even on your last podcast, I think I was on there a few times as well. So, yeah, I love talking to your guests and yourself, mate. So, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, beautiful. And I definitely encourage everyone to go and check that out. I'm sure they'll be inspired after listening to our conversation today, because we covered everything on longevity last time.
Yes.
And today we're gonna touch on fasting and cold exposure, because the questions I get asked so much, and there's so confusion. And then in the end, I've gone, you know what? I'm just going to record a podcast, get Dave on, we can shoot the breeze, talk about it, and then I can just send them this podcast.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I guess there's a lot of confusion, especially with fasting. We'll get into that in a minute. Yeah. And it is the hot topic, as you said. Like, you know, and people that come into my office, a lot of people are doing fasting, and but I guess people just need to understand it is a stress on the body. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more. And there are better ways to utilize it. You got to make sure you're in a good place to be able to utilize it properly. I don't want people to get me wrong. I'm a huge advocate of fasting, but like anything, you've got to understand when is the right time to implement it so I get the maximum benefit from it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So before we do get into fasting then, I'm going to ask you the same question I ask everyone, just so people, if they're not familiar with your work and what you do and why the hell I've got you on to talk about fasting and cold exposure today. If a stranger stops you on the street and asks you what you did for a living and you had 30 seconds, what would you tell them?
Look, always my analytical brain kicks in, and I'd probably go for the most sort of common answer, but probably now I wouldn't. And I'd probably say that I'm a bit of a generalist. And people are going to find that hard to sort of comprehend, because we always want to, like, people want to be specialists, and I don't necessarily always agree with that, and especially not in my field, because my field is to help people get the most out of their body. And there's no way I can help them get the most out of the body if I just specialize in one area. Now, I'm not taking that away from people who do that. That's amazing, and I respect it, and it's phenomenal. Yeah, okay, but I can't help someone achieve that optimal state of health if I don't understand biochemistry, if I don't understand cold therapy, if I don't understand heat therapy, if I don't understand breathing, if I don't understand fasting, if I don't understand training, if I don't understand all aspects of training. So to answer your question, I'm a generalist. Yeah, so I actually, I know it a decent amount on many different areas to do with what helps the body function a lot better.
So with that in mind then, and that's a great answer, mate. I haven't heard that one.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, no, truly. And
I thought you'd like that.
And it resonates a lot because we can quite often. So let's bring up fasting for a second, right? Because we'll start delving into that. But we can quite often, be not say looking at ourselves from a surface level. Let's say we're not happy in our job. We probably might be carrying too much weight. There's something not right. And then a friend goes, "Oh, I've heard fasting's great. You should try that." And then all of a sudden, they look to fasting to solve all the problems without actually delving into any other aspect. And that's why I think your answer is so poignant, because there are so many areas to this thing. It's not just like a one cut approach, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, the thing, like, as I said, I want to reiterate it. I'm a huge advocate of fasting. Okay. And the massive benefits of fasting is that for me, it's the big impact it has on the brain. Okay, so it helps with things like BDNF, like brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which I've talked about before on some of your previous podcasts. So it helps with formation of like new brain cells, and helps with the synapses, which means it helps with neurotransmitters, which means it helps with our mood and our behavior and all these types of things. And then obviously for me, it's the quickest way that we can actually produce ketones. Yeah. And then ketones is an alternative fuel source for the body, and an alternative fuel source for the brain, which is fantastic. Do you know what I mean? So, but it's important that people understand that there's, it is complex as well. Yeah. Okay. There is different forms of ketones. Yeah. So there's things like acetone. There's acetate, acetone acetate. Yeah. Okay. And there's B-hydroxybutyrate. Yeah. But I'm not going to go into the complexities with it. Yeah. Okay. But for me, there is these benefits, but you got to understand, is it the right thing for you at that time? Yeah. And a lot of people that I deal with, they're malnourished. They've been under eating. Yeah. Okay. And if they go and start doing something like fasting, well, essentially, they're not giving their body more nutrients, because we've got to look at where things like our neurotransmitters come from, like where our hormones come from. Without me going too technical into that, the derivatives for these compounds, yeah, is nutrients, is food, is macromolecules. Yeah. So the thing is, what you might be getting these benefits, and also with fasting, it actually helps with a particular gut hormone called motilin, and motilin actually helps with gut motility. So there is actually benefits from fasting to actually help with your gut structure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But understand that also I need the macromolecules from food to also help with my gut structure as well. So my point being is we need both. Does that make sense?
Totally. So question for you then as well, because you talked about undernourished. Could people be eating 3 meals a day, but the quality of the food is just not giving them the nutrients?
Yes. Yeah.
So there's two components, isn't there? We could be eating enough, but the quality isn't giving you the nutrients in the first place. So you're still malnourished.
Yeah, there'll be a few different factors there for me. So one is, yes, the quality of the food that the people are eating is actually not giving them the building blocks that they actually require for things like their hormones and their neurotransmitters and particular protein compounds in the body and so forth. And that's extremely common. Yeah. Okay. Another scenario is that they've got assimilation issues, which means they've got gastrointestinal issues where they can't actually assimilate the food properly. So whether that might be things like, intestinal permeability, things like SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, candida, yeast, other gastrointestinal complications where they're just not able to assimilate the nutrients properly. So essentially they're not getting enough micronutrients and macronutrients and so they're malnourished again. Does that make sense? Or whether it's hydrochloric acid issues. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So issues in the stomach. Yeah. So it can be those problems as well. Or simply they don't eat enough. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So they might already be going through their days. They wake up, they have a cup of coffee in the morning. They might have like a salad for lunch, and I'm not disputing the salad because there's a lot of essential micronutrients in there and so forth. But then they have dinner, but you got to understand that the body, there's benefits to undereating and there's benefits to overeating. And when I say overeating, I'm not talking about, like, because people get confused with this.
Having 2 bars of chocolate.
Yeah, like people going in and having 2 large pizzas and a 6-pack of beers, and they go, oh my God, like I've overeaten. And the natural inclination of the person in that instance is that the next day they go, I overate, so now I'm going to not eat today. Yeah? But the reality is the pizza and the 6-pack of beers was basically not full of nutrients, not full of macronutrients and micronutrients, so they're malnourished. And then the next day, they're not eating, so they're malnourished again. Yeah, okay? And so they're not also taking into account that when you're highly stressed, and I've mentioned to you about this many times, is you've got to eat to your stress levels, or you've got to put more stress management in place. Because the one thing is, when you're stressed, you take more nutrients from the body. You take more things like saturated fat. You take more things like cholesterol. And yes, your body can produce more saturated fat, can produce more cholesterol, but you can deplete it, and then you've got to get it more out of food. You've got to get it more out of dietary, yeah? You deplete more magnesium, you deplete more zinc. That's stress. And then bear in mind, I'm not even taking into account the greediest organ in the body, which is your brain. And your brain demands about 100 grams of glucose a day, yeah, okay? And yes, it can get it from alternative fuel source. So I don't want people to think that that means you go out and consume sugar and more refined carbohydrates and all these types of things. But your brain on a moderately stressful day will consume, and bear in mind this is rough, yeah, up to about 750 calories in a day. And we're not taking this into account and it's different from person to person because we utilize energy differently. We've got different digestive complications and different microbiome structure and so forth. So that is going to affect our assimilation. And guess what? People have more emotional stress in their life. Yeah. Okay. They're using their brain more. Like, we're not taking into account someone working a job, but studying. Yeah. And then they're getting minimal sleep. So they don't actually help to replenish the body. So, do you understand what I mean? So
and I'm thinking of a way of actually distilling all that back, right, to a question I think we should ask ourselves, is because ultimately at the end of the day, eating incorrectly is a form of stress in the body, right? Then you've got the lifestyle we choose to do. If we're sitting in a chair all day is a form of stress on the body because we're not stressing the body in a good way. Then you've got the stress, the mental stress of everything that's going on. So we've already got this stress. And the question I guess we need to ask ourselves is adding in another stress like fasting at this particular stage going to help or actually compound stress? Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, because it can just add to your allostatic load.
Explain allostatic load.
Yeah, okay. So allostatic, because there's obviously many different, with allostatic load, you've got many different factors that can contribute to your stress load, basically. Yeah, okay. And just understand that the human body is amazing and we can deal with a lot of stress. Yeah, okay. And I might be talking about environmental stresses here. So those environmental stresses might be like your surroundings, your neighborhood. So people can get confused with that because they think it's to do with things like pollutants and toxins and all that. But I'm talking more about where you live. Yeah, okay. What you're surrounded by. Do you feel unsafe? All those types of things. Trauma would contribute to your allostatic load. Okay, because your body has to adapt to all these different stresses. Okay, and then that becomes the new homeostasis for the body, because like we've talked about this before, the new homeostasis for the brain and the new homeostasis for the body. Because the body, if you don't adapt to these stresses, then it's going to have severe consequences on the body. So the body's trying to help you out. Okay, and then we're talking about physiological stresses as well. So things like your biochemistry, your microbiome, okay? Because they're adding, and if they're out and your microbiome balance is out and you've got more opportunistic bacteria, more pathogenic bacteria, then that's adding to your stress load as well. Yeah, okay? And then you've got even things like genetics, like genetic mutations and so forth. They can provide that add to your allostatic load. Does that make sense? And then there would be other things like chemicals, like physical, chemicals and pollutants. And that it's just a reality of life, is that we are more exposed to those things than ever before. And so all these things add to your allostatic load, and that is your allostasis. That is your the new homeostasis in the body.
Beautiful.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Yeah. Okay. And then what we've got to understand is, even though training and cold therapy and heat therapy and fasting, which I'm a huge advocate of, and you know this, they are stressors. And I talk about, sometimes you can use stress to heal stress.
Oh, yeah.
100%. Yeah. Okay. And these things you can use them as a mechanism to help to heal stress-related issues in the body. But you got to understand when is the best time to use that tool, because it's like a tool in your toolkit. When is the best time that I can actually utilize it?
Yeah, because I think we've lost, I believe we've lost touch with ourselves.
Yeah.
Like we're not in tune anymore, because the longer I've been doing this work, or from all angles, the more in tune with my body I am, and start to just develop a relationship with it and understand what's needed when.
100%. Yeah.
And we spend most of our lives so disconnected from our bodies and so externally focused. And it's then that stress and that how it's shaping our perception and the way we are seeing the world at any given stage is making our choices absolutely have no, they're not actually, like I always say to people, imagine we could take your head off your shoulders for a few days, right? And actually just let the body do what it wants to do. And then place a bit of your head back on. But because we've got a brain and the way our analytical mind is seeing things, it has to obey to that command at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then, as I said, like if I just look at some of and as I said, I use fasting with clients, but like initially with a lot of the people that I'm seeing is that they are malnourished, and I want to flood the body with nutrients, the right nutrients that is going to give them the building blocks for their hormones, neurotransmitters, so their brain functions better, their hormones are more regulated, and so they feel more energized and so forth. Yeah. And so it's probably not going to be the best time in that instance to use the tool of fasting, because their body just doesn't need another stress. Their body just doesn't need another stress. And people are going to talk about blood sugar management regulation. And yes, for people who are obese, using the right type of fasting can help with things like insulin sensitivity, help with people who've got insulin resistance. Of course, like 100% that helps. Yeah. Okay. But people need to understand that if let's say, and I'll try and make it as simple as possible. If I do a hard training session, okay, which obviously I like people to move more and train and so forth. But if I do a hard training session, my blood glucose levels will drop 1 to 2 hours after my training session. Okay. If I just rested and I'm not doing much, I'm doing the bare minimum, might be just like meditating, which, people need to definitely do a lot more, so they don't have to probably consume as much food, because those mechanisms allow us to not have that energy demand so much. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Yes. But my blood glucose levels will drop after about 16 hours if I just not doing much. Yeah. I'm doing more restorative things. It takes about 16 hours for my blood glucose to drop. So what I want people to consider is, what is going to be more similar to stress? The training session, or me just doing not much and relaxing and so forth? It's going to be way more similar to the training session, which means my blood glucose levels, one of the biggest disruptors of blood glucose levels is stress. Okay. Which means if I'm going to fast regularly through the week, and then I'm stressed out at work and I've got all this emotional stress, what do you think is going to happen to your blood glucose levels? Yeah. Okay. They're going to drop. Yeah. Okay. Because they're being affected because you're having spikes in your catecholamines and cortisol and so forth. And then basically that can lead to people also going for the lowest common denominator, because their blood glucose levels drop and they reach out for things like coffee and sugar and so forth. Yeah, okay. But also, you've got to call on cortisol in that instance. And cortisol is going to come along, and guess what? It's going to take from your reserves. It's going to take from your amino acid pools and your nitrogen pools. It's going to take the amino acids that you need for aspects like your digestive system, your immune system, yeah, okay? Like amino acids like glutamine and alanine, okay? Because they're what we call glycogenic amino acids, which means they actually help to regulate your blood glucose levels. Because regulating blood glucose is essential, yeah? Because if we don't, we're going to slip into a coma, we're going to die. Okay, so the body's going to prioritize it in that moment in time. Okay, so you by just randomly fasting without actually knowing if it's the best thing for you, you could be disrupting this further. That's my point.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope that makes sense. But
it does. I'll need to listen to that last bit myself again, but it does, and I'm thinking about, the blood sugar regulation, and the first thing we normally do is eat something that's full of sugar or crap or high in carbohydrate to get that blood sugar spike back up, right?
Well, because there's a metabolic pathway called gluconeogenesis, which its role is to regulate your blood glucose levels during periods of starvation. Completely normal. But what happens if you're deliberately starving yourself all the time? Which is that's not coming under a survival circumstance. That's because you're deliberately doing, because you're trying to lose weight or whatever that might be, or you're not doing it in a controlled environment. Yeah, don't like your body when you're stressed and you're using your brain. Guess what? What do you think you need more? More nutrients or less food?
Yeah, more
nutrients.
Simple.
Yeah. And the good thing about fasting, when you do it on something like a rest day, where you're just meditating, you walk, you get into nature, okay? And then by doing the fasting, when you do eat, it allows you to utilize the nutrients better.
And you're not eating from a really stressed state, from the fasting and your stressed life.
Exactly, because the argument has always been is that when you're in that fight and flight, well, of course, when you're producing too much like stress hormones, sends a message to the gut, and it downregulates gut hormones like ghrelin, which is like your hunger hormone. Yeah, okay. And they say, well, because the digestive system in that stress state, okay, you're obviously not going to break down nutrients and so forth as well. Then, okay, we shouldn't be eating in that state. But and yes, being in that stress state can send out some false negatives and so forth, because it's going to downregulate your appetite and all that sort of stuff. Because obviously digestion is not important in that instance. That's why I'm saying putting some meditation and some heart math and these during the day, that actually helps to mitigate that, so that you can utilize the nutrients better. Because guess what? Your brain wants the nutrients and your body wants the nutrients so that you're more productive. You got better energy systems and so forth. Like for me, I've heard people say that food is not energizing, and I do not agree. Okay, that when they eat, they feel tired. That is a problem within your body. Okay, food is energizing. When I eat food, I feel great. Okay, and that's how you should feel. If food is making you feel exhausted and tired, most likely you've got some other issue going on internally in the body.
And the quality of the food as well.
The quality of the food, assimilation, all those types of things.
I'll add something to that. So the weekend, the 3-day retreat we just did, right? Where there was a lot of heart opening. We were doing a lot of heart math techniques, meditation, breathing, yoga, in a very intent direction of where we wanted to take the group of people. But the one thing I would not bend on in any shape or form was the food. Because you and I, we've been to retreats, and the one thing that always seems to let us down is the food. And we did organic, right? Farm to table. And I'll give Ron at Open Table Catering a shout out, because she was freaking amazing. But the one thing that was blatantly obvious is that people are coming in and been in this bubble for 3 days, and they could not believe how they felt after eating this food. They were energized, mate. And nearly everyone came up to me at the end and said, "Oh my God, you've really made me think about the way I eat. And I want to keep eating like this when I go home. Like, it's unbelievable." And they
100%. Yeah, because as I said, like I always use this simple analogy with a lot of people. I say, well, okay, like, where do your hormones come from? I'll say that to people. Yeah, okay. And then they'll go, oh, they come from your endocrine glands. Mm-hmm. And I go, no, it's location. Where do they come from? And people, they're lost. They go, they don't know. Okay, because we've never actually put the emphasis on food being the building blocks for these things. And this is basic science, guys. This is basic science. We've gone away from basic science where people don't understand the importance. Like, because your hormones are steroidal, like cortisol, progesterone, your sex hormones, okay, which means they come from cholesterol. They come from lipids, yeah, okay? And then you've got what we call peptide hormones, which are like insulin, yeah, your thyroid, which regulates your metabolism, yeah, okay? And they're derivatives of protein, amino acids, okay? So if I'm not getting those precursors and those building blocks, do you think there's a good chance that I'm going to have hormonal issues? Yeah. Yeah. And if the area that assimilates it, which is your digestive system, is broken, that's going to be an issue also. It's like a waterfall. Yeah. Okay. If you want to understand why the waterfall is not flowing properly, you don't go hang out at the bottom of the waterfall. You go to the top. Okay. And most of the time it's the food, how we digest it, and then that's affecting the neurotransmitters and the hormones, because we don't have the correct compounds. Yeah. And that's the same with what people are putting in their mouth. Yeah. Okay. Because they just think, well, I put food in and the body will sort it out. It will sort it out if the quality of what you're putting in there is giving it what it requires to function.
Yeah. Okay. I couldn't agree more. So I'm just thinking to the listeners, let's then dumb this right back into simple things that they should at least know they need to start thinking about addressing if they're fasting at the moment, because I'm sure a lot of people, if they're listening to this, could well be already fasting.
Yep.
Right? And so what areas should we be looking at to ensure that we're actually looking at more of that generalistic approach? Let's recap it all. So obviously the quality of the food and the nutrients and the amount of food that we eat in.
Yes, and fix up assimilation. And what I mean by that is how you're absorbing and digesting food.
Okay, because it's massive.
It's huge. Yeah. Okay. Because remember, fasting helps when we put food in the body. Okay. But understand we need that nutrients to allow us to be able to get the maximum benefit from fasting as well. Because understand a lot of the nutrients we need for the gut lining, which is things like zinc and B6, yeah, and arginine and glutamine and prebiotics, yeah, they all come from nutrients. They all come from food. Yeah,
I need to emphasize that point massively, because obviously my wife Linda, and I'm fortunate to have a wife who's a naturopath and specializes in gut health, and she's like watching my symptoms starting to turn up over the last 18 months. And, at the beginning of last year, I'm like, right, I'm all in. I'm going to test and work out what's going on. And I'm doing all the things we're talking about here. Like, do you know what I mean? And
I know.
It blows my mind. And then I went on the protocol with her, and over this 3-month period, it's like, I don't recognize myself. It's massive. So I just need to hammer that home for everyone, what you just said, because I'm experienced that firsthand.
Yeah, and so we've got to make sure that that we're giving the body the right nutrients, and that we're fixing up that assimilation. So when we are eating the food, that we're utilizing it better, and this in turn will be able to, like, further down the line, it would enable us to be able to utilize something like fasting properly. The one thing I will say with people, if you're malnourished, you add fasting, you're not adding something that is giving you more nourishment.
Yeah.
You're adding something that is a stress on the body. It's a great stress. Yes, it helps with insulin sensitivity. Yes, it helps with ketones, alternative fuel source for the brain. Yeah, okay, BDNF, all these amazing things, but it's not giving you the building blocks because you're not eating anything. Yeah, okay. So you don't want to go from malnourished to malnourished. fix the body, heal the body first, then utilize fasting. And guess what? Then fasting's actually going to help with aspects that I was talking about, like gut motility and so forth. That's why I like people to do even like a 6-1 concept of fasting. Like people talk about intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting, I generally say, look, we've also got to be mindful that I would generally say intermittent fasting and so forth, these can be a lot better for guys, because if I look at actually our evolution, I'm not being sexist here, yeah, okay, but we haven't evolved as much as we think we have, yeah, okay, and I like to say guys were the hunters, yeah, and females were the gatherers, yeah, okay, and they wouldn't just sit around and wait for the guys to come back with the food like a couple of days later. They'd go forage and they'd go find food, and the complexity of their hormones, especially in this day and age with the amount of stress we've got and so forth, does require them to give those building blocks a little bit more often. Does that make sense? So, so we generally do, men, that is, extremely well on fasting. We can do it a little bit more regularly. We can drop our calories a lot more aggressively, you know, but, you know, doing that with females, you've got to be very mindful of actually the negative consequence that can have on their hormones and so forth. Yeah, okay. That's why I like to do like a 6-1 concept, and a 6-1 is just like 1 day of fasting. Okay, and you do that fasting on a day that is less stressful.
Yeah.
Okay, where you're going to get into nature, where you're going to do some meditation. Yeah, okay, and for a lot of people that might be a Sunday, say, where they're spending it with family, they're laughing. Yeah, okay. All these types of things. So, and they might fast 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, and then they don't have a meal until about 12 o'clock midday, because then you're coming under that 16-hour window.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, okay.
I generally tend to do that on Sundays.
Yeah, and then the next meal you put in your body is something that is nourishing for the gut. That's going to provide the gut with all those building blocks that I was talking about before. That's why I'd be really big on something like a slow cook, where you're getting a lot more things like glycine, you're getting even things like glutamine, and it's got vegetables in there and good quality fats, maybe like organic ghee, okay, because ghee, you know, it's a medium chain fatty acid, so it's less stress on the pancreatic enzymes, less stress on the digestive system. So something, and then, you know, different types of vegetables, and so something that's going to nourish the digestive system, because you've benefited the digestive system by stimulating motilin and so forth, which has helped with the gut motility. And then I would get the person to fast again from, let's say, 1 p.m. till the next morning. So you've essentially like done like 2 15-hour fasts.
Yeah.
And as I said, that's just one mechanism, but understand with a lot of the people I deal with, they're highly stressed. They do long days. They do extra things like study. They train a lot. And the best way to implement fasting initially is to do it on a day where where the demand on the body is not as high.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. But surely as well, my mind's going, people tend to snack a lot, and they snack on shit.
Okay. Can I pull you up just 2 seconds on that? Yeah. Okay. You know, I like to get technical, and sometimes when they snack a lot, yeah, okay, this can actually be disruption of their gut hormones. So there's actually a gut hormone called glucagon-like peptide 1. Now, people don't need to remember this stuff, okay? But when you've affected like because these hormones are directly produced from your gut, yeah, okay? And glucagon-like peptide 1 is produced from the small intestine, large intestine. Its job is to help with the release of things like insulin, okay, to regulate your blood glucose levels and to slow down the rate that food is getting passed from the stomach down into the small intestine. Okay, and so what happens when you've disrupted this gut hormone? These people just like to snack all the time.
Totally.
Constantly. There can be other reasons, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
These can be some of the reasons. Yeah?
And it's massive. So my point, I'm just thinking of the end listener right now, because it can get all overwhelming very quickly. And surely eating 3 nutrient-rich meals a day and cutting out all snacking is a form of fasting, because you fast in between the meals.
Yes, and you might wake up and have your first, you know, they call it like even like having your first meal or your breakfast at 9 or 10, yeah, and then your last meal, you try and cram those 3 meals into a shorter time period, and your last meal finished sort of like 6 p.m.
Yeah.
But then you're fasting from that point till the next morning. Yeah. Okay. So
that's how I make, honestly, like, obviously I've gone through most of the things that you're talking about with my wife, right? You know, I looked at my gut protocol. I'm very mindful. I'm into, like, I tune in, I'm very tuned into if I'm stressed or not, and I need to actually eat more right now or not. Like, it's all going on. But one of the beautiful things for me is that we eat 6 o'clock in the evening is our last meal. And then I won't eat until earliest 8 o'clock the next morning, maybe even later. And that's, for me, is a fantastic, but I get up at 5 a.m. as well. So it's not like I'm laying in bed till 5 to 8 and then falling out, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's because there's so many different ways of fasting that can be less stressful on the body.
Totally.
But like 100% agree with you guys that, like, people snacking throughout the day and so forth, most of the time it's because they're not having significant amount of nutrients to nourish the body. And the body just goes, all right, like, this is just not enough.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's going to tell you about it because you're not really regulating blood glucose levels. Okay. And the body goes, well, let's get something in there. Does it make sense? And people just snacking constantly. Understand, like, I never snack and I never feel like I want to snack. Okay. Because I have.
And you train.
Yeah. I train hard
right?
and I work long days. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I never want to snack. Okay. Because when I eat, I have meals. And I have meals that contain a lot of macromolecules and a lot of micronutrients that give my body the building blocks.
Yeah.
Okay, that regulate all these things that I've been talking about.
Yeah. So the take-home message, because I want to touch on cold exposure before we get into the last part of the podcast as well. So the take-home message then with this is really look at your stress levels, look at the foods you're actually eating, and look to see where you can make improved changes in your life in many areas before you just go gung-ho into fasting.
Yeah, 100%. You wanna fix the foundations first, before you start just applying more stresses to the body. And as I said, I don't want your listeners to get me wrong. A huge advocate of fasting. I use it with people for all those reasons I talked about at the start. But I make sure first that they're in a good place to utilize it. Yes. You know, intermittent fasting, I use that with people. Very, very good for people who've got digestive issues, like issues with secretory IgA, which you would have talked about because guys like Greg Braden and that, they talk about how heart math and emotions can help with that. Well, guess what? People who've got secretory IgA issues, they might do better on a little bit of intermittent fasting. But understand, I know who those people are. Does that make sense? I don't just go, well, let's just randomly do intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got to stop the randomness of just like doing it because your friend told that they're doing well on it, and that's great. Okay, but not everyone's different. Okay, everyone's got different circumstances going on. Yeah. Okay. And that might be serving them, and that's working well for them, but it definitely doesn't mean it's going to work well for you.
Totally. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And you know what, in some respects, because I want to touch on cold exposure as well, because, you know, I ice bath once a week. I'm coming down to Melbourne next week. We're going to go hunting for a waterfall.
Yes, I'm a bit of a waterfall chaser nowadays.
That's freezing cold, right?
Yeah, I think we spoke before, but like nature bathing, and I'm definitely, you know, my downtime, I definitely try to get straight into nature and, you know, expose myself to spring water and negative ions and, you know, the ocean and all these types of things. I mean, I think nature is just so healing on the body. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, we just spent 3 days submerged in it, and it was huge. So, but you could almost apply a lot of the things we just spoken about in terms of timing then to cold exposure. It's a form of stress. Like getting in an ice bath is not relaxing.
No, it's that, like, look, you know me, I'm a huge, and that's obviously how we met, in an ice bath, mate.
Exactly, I know.
And you know me, I'm a huge supporter of ice therapy. Huge supporter, and I think we had a conversation not long ago where I just said the more research I do on it, the more I'm sold. Yeah. And because you know me, I like things that are multifaceted. Now, once upon a time, I used to like it used to be about using some sort of miracle herb to try and manipulate a particular pathway or something like that. Where now I've had to go really complex to understand that the mechanisms that we use are actually really simple. Yeah, and I've had to do that, but then I understand that actually it comes down to simple things that we need to do for the body to actually help to heal it. Okay. And the more I learn about cold therapy, the more I understand that it is a multifaceted tool. And like it covers so many different spectrums. Yeah. And I'd say it's one of the most powerful tools that I use with people. Yeah. Okay. And I'm not saying it's the mecca of everything. Far from it, because heat therapy, that has its huge benefits as well. You know, heat shock proteins helping people with things like multiple sclerosis, like MS, protein misfolding issues, and all these types. So heat therapy is amazing, getting rid of things like excess calcium buildup, preventing calcification. But cold therapy for me in this day and age, okay, because so many people are immunosuppressed. Their immune system is depleted from high exposure to stress, emotional stress. Yeah, okay. So things like their white blood cells,
EMF.
So that's why cold therapy for me is such an important tool in a modern society. I'm not saying maybe back in the day, maybe not so much. Yeah, okay. But in a modern society, it's one of the most important tools that I use. And I even even if we like something like aerobic training, for instance, yeah, okay, like long-term system or oxidation, yeah, okay, that has huge benefits because it actually helps with particular proteins. Okay, so they're going to sound a little bit confusing, but it's a thing called PGC number 1 that just helps with your mitochondria, so it helps with your cells. Okay, so it actually helps with our energy output. Yeah,
and what's a mitochondria role in layman's terms?
Look, I think in more simple terms is essentially to provide energy for the body.
Perfect. Yeah.
I'm not going to get more complicated.
No, that's all it needs to be.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But the point that I'm sort of getting across, yeah, okay, is that actually ice therapy. So we always used to think aerobic training was one of the best mechanisms to actually help with this protein and help with the mitochondria, and even to help with detox pathways as well. But guess what? Ice therapy also helps with this particular protein as well. Okay. But it doesn't just stop there. Yeah. Okay. It actually helps with the brain. So it actually helps with norepinephrine, which tends to be, so that helps with focus and concentration. Yeah. Okay. Which tends to be almost the major reason that people have a lot of depressive type issues and so forth. It's not always serotonin. It's not always serotonin. Yeah. Okay. And then people who've got like obesity issues, like insulin resistance, leptin resistance, it can snap you out of those types of sluggish metabolism issues. Okay. Because you get, like, if I use training and if I use nutrition, I'm not taking away from this. And of course I've got to use those as well, but it's going to be a slower process. I put you in an ice bath. Guess what your body says? What the hell is going on? Yeah, okay. And do you think it's just going to sit there and go, oh, we're not going to do anything? Yeah, it goes, it's not going to do that. It's not going to do that. It goes, we have to generate heat. We have to generate heat because it's this instant stress on the body where it's forcing the body to react immediately. Yeah. Okay. Which means it's going to take sugars, it's going to take fats, and it's going to convert them into heat for you to warm you up. And that's why people think shivering is a really bad thing. And I say shivering's a good thing. It's a normal process in the body. The role of shivering is to generate heat to help with thermogenesis, to warm you up. Okay? Just like when you hyperventilate, people go, oh, that's really bad. And I go, no. It's a normal mechanism in the body. Okay? Because the body's trying to get more oxygen to the mitochondria. Yeah, okay? So it's hyperventilate. So it does that because because of your lifestyle, because you're too stressed and all that type of stuff, you haven't been doing that.
Totally.
So the body sort of makes you do it. Yeah, okay? The body's trying to help you out. And shivering is a form of just trying to help you out. Trying to help you. Does it make sense?
Yeah. And we're using the elements around us, as simple as it is, to wake it up and get it active, and getting the systems within the body to adapt to their potential, because they're redundant by our lifestyles.
Yeah. Well, we basically say adults, normally we sit, like babies have a lot of brown fat. Yeah. Okay. And brown fat. So we've sort of got white fat, which provides cushioning. So it serves a purpose. Yeah. Okay. You got brown fat, which is higher in mitochondria than white fat, which means it's higher once again in energy. Yeah. Okay. And so we probably want to have a little bit more brown fat. Yeah. Okay. And babies initially have more brown fat. Okay. Because they don't know that they're going to get blankets and t-shirts and all this type of stuff when they come out. So they need to be able to generate heat to protect, to help with their natural thermostat. Okay. And then as we become adults, they say, well, we don't have as much brown fat, but we have more beige fat. And guess what? Beige fat has the ability to either produce more white fat or more brown fat. And our lifestyle, being more stressful, poor quality food and so forth, means we need more cushioning. Yeah. Okay. Which means we start to produce more white fat.
Yeah.
Okay. And because we're not in an environment where we've got to try and regulate our body temperature and so forth, and then we've got issues with things like the thyroid, the kidneys, the liver, the adrenals, where we've got high metabolic activity, that means that those areas are sluggish, and that's where you generally produce more brown fat. So we don't produce as much brown fat, okay? Which means we're going to have problems with things like weight gain and so forth, yeah, okay? We know that brown fat's got this thing, I always talk about this, UPC number 1, uncoupling protein, okay, which takes sugars and fats, okay, and converts that into energy, converts it into heat. And we know obese people have less of that particular protein. Yeah, okay. And I'm not saying, once again, cold therapy is the answer for all your problems, because you know me, I say that it involves I don't believe in a monotherapy. You've got to look at all facets of your life. Yeah, okay. And the more of these things you implement, the better you feel.
Totally.
Okay. But I do love multifaceted things, and cold therapy is going to help with metabolic issues. Yeah, okay. It's going to help with people who are struggling with weight gain. Yeah, okay. It's going to help with the brain. Yeah, okay.
And there's a couple of things. Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to wrap it up before we move on to the last set of questions for people, because they'd be like, okay, I get it. I want to stress my body, so I'm going to like cold shower 7 days a week and jump in 3 ice baths twice a day, you know, and all of a sudden the stress load, you just shift it at the other end. So caution is needed, respect is needed, and again, being in tune with your body is needed. And finding, and for me, one of the greatest things I did with this stuff is finding my edge, knowing where my comfort zone was when I got into a cold, and then going beyond what I thought I was capable of, but not overstretching the mark either. Because we've seen both ends of the spectrum, right? We've seen people going in and going, this is, you know, and not even actually embracing it. And then you get the other end where it's just like...
like, I mean, I think you'll bring up some really amazing points, yeah, okay? And it's sort of, it is similar to that fasting scenario, okay? It is a stress on the body. And guess what? If you don't know how to utilize it properly, sometimes it might have not the positive effect that you want it to have on the body. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to, once again, you've got to utilize cold therapy in the right way.
Yeah.
And I just think with cold therapy also, is that it's just a great example of life. Okay. And guess what? I've talked about this before. Yeah. Most of the best things in life for you come with a short-term pain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it's the repetition and pushing through that. Okay. That means when you come out the other side, you feel better than you've ever felt before. Okay. Training is a great example of that. Yeah. Cold therapy is an example of that. Yeah. Okay. Initially it's uncomfortable. Meditation, you know, I've said to you that for me, like metacognition, when I first started doing that, it was painful. Yeah. Okay. I had negative thoughts. I felt really uncomfortable. I actually had to call up Guy and say that I'm really having some bad conflict here. Yeah. Okay. But I kept persisting with it. I kept up the repetition. And then when I came out the other end, I felt amazing. And that's life. Yeah. That's life. Like when you get through these pain points, yeah. And guess what? The pain in your life, you learn so much from it. Yeah. That when you come out the other end, you're far better for it. And that's why I just think the ice bath is the best example in a short period of time of that. Okay. Because you get in there and you go, my God, I want to get out. This is painful. Oh, I'm uncomfortable. Oh, but once you go with it, yeah. And once you relax, you get through it, and then you come out the other end, and it's like a euphoric feeling like you've never felt before. You feel more energized. Yeah. You feel more clear in the head because it's helping with all these things that I've been talking about. That's life.
It's a beautiful metaphor. I always tell people that. It's just a beautiful metaphor. I'm aware of the time, my man. So I'm going to hit you with a couple of questions and just speak freely, but I'll keep you reined in.
I'm looking forward to these, mate.
Now, what's been a big struggle in your life recently, but has later turned out to be a blessing?
I mean, look, for me, I've mentioned this before with you. My failing health, yeah, which, believe it or not, I had extremely poor health. Even though on the outside, visibly, I looked great. I had a six pack and aesthetically looked pretty good. On the inside, I was slowly dying. my gastrointestinal health was so poor. I was starting to get neurological problems, which wasn't indicative of me, social phobias and all these types of things. So, and at that time, it was definitely the worst sort of experience, like for me personally in my life, yeah. But also for me, it was the best thing that's happened to me in my life, because I understood that, one, that I wasn't a representation of what I really wanted to be. And that, yes, being aesthetically looking good on the outside, but if I wasn't reflecting that on the inside, how could I actually help people? Yeah. Beautiful. How could I actually help people? And that actually just forced me to go further down the rabbit hole, and actually forced me to look at many different other mechanisms in life, like things like cold therapy and heat therapy and all the and eventually things like meditation. It just jolted me into a different path, in a different direction. And if I didn't have that shake up, then I would have just continued down this path that was actually leading to serious health issues and for me not feeling happy.
Beautiful. Yeah. If you're looking back on 2018, what had the biggest impact on you in that year? It can be anything.
Look, I mean, it's pretty simple, and I can't even believe I had to sit there and think about it. The birth of my daughter was the most. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me in my life. Yeah. It changed me a lot as a person. It's and you know me very well, and sometimes I can be guilty because I love people. I love people, and I want to help people. And sometimes that can come to the detriment of my own health, and we're guilty of this in the health industry. As we put so much into it that sometimes we overlook the things that are actually helping us. And I can be guilty of this, like a lot of people. And the one thing is, like, Brea coming along, no longer, like, now it was about someone else. And so actually my amount of self-care, which, understand, like, I've actually got a reasonably high amount of self-care. But that went up a notch again. So things that sometimes, like putting a higher importance on sleep, not working, like not working late, where I'd actually get to a point, and this is quite hard for me, where I'd go, no, this can wait. This can wait, because the number one priority for me is that I get to spend time with my daughter in the morning where I'm not exhausted. Yeah, I'm not tired all the time. So the time that I'm spending with her is the most valuable time possible. Cool. So it's just, I just can't, like, people have said to me, you don't understand what it's like to have a child and to be a parent. And now I understand why. Yeah. Okay. Because I could never express it to anyone until it actually happens to them.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I got all that to come.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was just thinking, just before I wrap it up as well, if you've listened to this far, and you're probably going to be interested to know that we're running a longevity retreat to Japan. Mention it. And we're looking at dates in September. Nothing's finalized yet, but just come back to my website, guylawrence.com.au, if you want to join us. We went to Sardinia last year, and we had a phenomenal time. Like, we had 15 amazing souls come together, and we went on a journey.
Yeah, and look, the great thing about these experiences it's 15, 20 people who are on a journey, as you said.
And it's fun. Like, we laugh, we have good time, like, we just live.
And it's indicative of what is so special about the blue zone areas.
Yeah.
Like, I talk about it all the time. Everyone's talking about their food, and I'm just going, they all eat different food, okay? But the one thing they all do, they've got strong community bonds.
Yeah.
And that's the experience that we have when we do these blue zone tours, is it's the strong community bond that is the most powerful thing that you're going to get out of that experience. Yes, we're learning about a different culture. Yes, we're experiencing the food they eat, but it's the strong community bond that we're creating on that journey that is the most powerful thing.
Yeah. And everything we've covered today, in 1 minute or less, what would you like our listeners to ponder on?
Look, obviously the human body is complex, okay? And listening to me, people are going to think it is really complex, and there's a lot to it, and there is, okay? But I always say this, that people have to take a leap of faith, okay? And don't rely on one thing there's no monotherapy, okay? So there's not going to be one thing that is going to change every single facet in your life, okay? And that's what I would say. By adopting many different ideologies and healthy aspects to your lifestyle, you're going to get closer and closer to optimal health, and you're going to get more out of your life. Yeah. And then I just think, fasting and cold therapy, they're just two examples of that. Okay. And by adding them in the right way, that's what I want to stress, in the right way. They've got all these different chemical reactions and amazing benefits in the body. So just think about it. If one of them has got all these amazing reactions and benefits, and then I add another one to that, which also does the same thing, and then I add another one to that, well, just think, like metacognition and meditation. Now I add community to that as well. Now I add nourishing food. Wow. Like
life changes. Yeah.
What is the power behind that? Like, I cannot even, like, I would bore people to tears if I tried to summarize every single chemical reaction, every single positive thing that's going to happen to your body when you add all these things into your life. I can't do it. Yeah, it's so powerful. It's unbelievable.
Totally. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
And everyone, I know you're a busy boy, but for everyone want to check out more of you or your amazing team or what you're doing down in Melbourne, It's fifthelementwellness.com.au.
Yeah, 5ew.com.au.
I'll link in the show notes anyway.
Yeah, and we've got many sort of things in the pipeline and coming up this year, and so if people even follow us on Facebook and sort of keep a finger on the pulse of some of the things that we're going to be bringing out.
And you do Facebook Lives, right? You've got a regular Facebook Live slot.
Yeah. Look, and I'm going to start to be a little bit more active on social media. I'm not, you know me very well, mate. I'm a bit of a technophobe, but I'm definitely going to be a lot more active on social media. I spent a month away last year writing a book, which I'm really excited about. I'm not sort of going to plug that yet because I've still got to finalize it. So
maybe a podcast is coming.
Yes, maybe. Yeah. So there's definitely things in the pipeline, and 2019 we're going to start to release a lot of those things. So it's exciting. Beautiful,
mate. And look, I just want to thank you for coming on the show today and everything that you do. Very proud to call you a dear friend, mate. And I'm forever learning. That was no exception to the rule today.
Yeah, I know. You know me, mate. Like that analytical brain and always kicks in for me. But the one thing that you've helped me with is definitely getting out of that analytical brain. And I think it's great to be analytical, but I also, for me, tapping into that emotional state and getting out of that over-analyzing things has been, I would say 2018 was a big step for me in doing that. And, how you've helped me with the metacognition and all that, it's been amazing. It's made me way more productive, way more able to tap into my emotional state as well. So, yeah, I'll advise all the listeners to get on to Let It In, and it's doing good things.
Thank you. And I look forward to delving it further in August at a retreat in 2019 with you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like I look forward to that. I'm definitely wanting to try to sift through that analytical brain. I've definitely made steps towards that, but I'm looking to go a little bit deeper.
Mate, you've done amazing. Yeah. Thanks, legend.
All right. Thanks, mate. Thanks, listeners.
Cheers.
See you, guys.
Bye-bye.